All right. Hi, Celeste. How are you today?
I'm doing great. Thanks, Kim.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's go
Oops,
ahead and
sorry, I'm here.
that's
Okay.
all right. Let's go
Um,
ahead and dive straight in. I would love to hear what I can support you with today.
yeah. So I think something that's been coming up for me is just this feeling in my relationship where I often feel like I'm the one who's bringing everything to the table when things need to be looked at or when we need to shine a light on things, like whether it's financially related. Like, okay, I got a new job. Let's talk about that. And like maybe if I'm making more money, then are uh, are we going to start to save that money, or where is that going to go? Or like just like even future planning. Like, okay, will we save for a down payment on a condo or a house? Just like anything, even like the health and well-being of our animals. I feel like a lot of just that day-to-day planning comes on me, and it makes me feel like I'm like the mom to our relationship. And I bring it up with my partner, but nothing changes. And I just kind of feel resentful. And I don't know how to like actually get like a change happening here where it feels like we're both connected to the needs of the relationship.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I just, first of all, want to say that this is a common relationship pattern that I hear so often. And um, it's Louise. Gosh, I'm going to say the wrong, I want to say it's Lou. I'm going to quote the wrong name, so I'm not even going to try. But she's labeled this as an over functioning and an under functioning dynamic.
Mm,
And I just like to bring that verbiage up because I feel like even naming something can
mm,
feel like this, just like, oh, like being able to label it and have a name for it and be able to really see how we can sort of fall into these well-worn roles, right? Of like, oh, I'm in this over-functioning role, and whenever I'm in this over-functioning role, there's likely going to be an under-functioner that I am enabling to under-function by over-functioning, right?
mhm,
Um, and the other piece that I like to bring up, because I just feel like I would be remiss not bringing this up, is that I think we can focus so myopically almost on just ourselves and not really zoom out to see kind of the wider sociocultural context of things and sort of make ourselves the problem. And in this particular instance of a heterosexual relationship, I just want to bring up that a lot of times there can be this mental and emotional load that falls on women, that there's been lots of research and studies on, based on patriarchal expectations, that a lot of that mental and emotional load ends up falling on women and is kind of just expected. And I'm not saying that this is the fault of men. I'm saying it's oppressive systems, right? That this is really coming through. And so before I even go on to getting into anything else, I just want to sort of say both of those things and see if any that has brought up anything for you before we go on.
it's interesting. I mean, in a way, I almost kind of feel like it's maybe it is that sort of patriarchal system because it's almost like that feeling of like the woman. I mean, I saw this even with my mom growing up. My mom just like handled all the things, and I think in a way I looked at that and I thought that's what a strong woman does. That's what a woman who is in charge,
Mhm.
who sees all of the things, who is successful actually. Like I think I actually saw it as like a success metric of
Mm.
a female to be aware of all the things and take care of the things. So as you're saying that, I can see how I've sort of embodied that because I also want to feel successful in life, in relationship, and it's almost like a bot, like like it feels like a boss level thing to be like, I have my eyes on all the things and I'm responsible for the growth. But I also, I don't want to be. I,
Yeah.
I want, and it also makes me feel kind of like, um, there's just a disconnect in the relationship and like the intimacy of the relationship
Mhm.
if it feels like I'm the only one who sees things happening or who is like proactive.
Mhm. Yeah, I hear that maybe there's been these underlying stories and meaning that you have made that maybe have even been largely unconscious. This like this is what a strong woman just does. Like it's almost like this these glasses, this filter that you've been living your life through, maybe even unaware of, like, I have to do these things because it's my job, it's my role to be aware and have all of the balls in the air and be able to juggle all of them. And if one of them drops, it means I'm not the strong woman that I have seen my mom be. And I think that women are expected to be. And yet I hear that there's another part of you that wants to be able to rest and wants to be able to let the balls drop and doesn't want to have to be aware of all of the things and wants to be able to be, the word that I would use would be equally met in your
Mm,
partnership.
yes. As you say that, I mean, I think there's like one side of it where it's like it's the day-to-day life stuff of like finances and whatever. But there's also like the needs of the relationship of
Mhm.
um and I like those conversations too, I feel like are that in a way those are almost the more exhausting ones to have
Mhm.
because it's kind of like advocating for something that feels really like personal and close to my heart versus like you do the grocery shopping this
Right.
time. Um, that just feels like an exhausting labor, but it's like something that feels important to me to get met in the relationship. And it sounds screwed up, but I'm like, I don't know how you teach someone that, like,
Mhm.
do I need to teach him or like, I don't know how those conversations, how to even have that conversation. Cause it almost even feels like an emasculating conversation to be like, you're not, I feel like you're not seeing that um these conversations should happen or they shouldn't be one-sided or like I want to have them, but then again, it's like it feels like it's always me having them.
What I'm hearing, and you tell me how this lands with you, is, you know, these conversations about the needs of the relationship specifically, they're more vulnerable, and so they're going to take more out of you.
Mm,
And what I'm hearing as a common theme on all of these things is that it's exhausting for you to always be the one that has to take initiative, that you don't want to have to be the one to be aware, because like I said, there's a mental and emotional load that goes with that that's unseen and perhaps not applauded.
mhm.
And there's also the factor of like having to be the one to take initiative on it all the time. And sometimes it would be nice to have him come to you and say, hey, I'm noticing XYZ is happening with our finances, let's have a chat about that. Or hey, I'm noticing we felt distant, like, can we talk about what's going on with that and maybe a way to bridge the gap, right?
Oh my God, that would be so sexy if that happened.
Yeah. And so, here's the thing. I hear you asking the question of like, how does one even begin to have this more, be equally met? And how do you even have these conversations without them being emasculating and all of the things? And the difficulty with these sort of conversations is that we only have control over ourselves. And I am coaching you right now. I'm not with your partner. And even if your partner was here, we can't change him. We can't control him. And so really what I'm most curious about sort of poking at and us looking at is you and your overfunctioner role, and you and your role of like, gosh, in my mind, I equate being a strong woman with being aware of all of these things and juggling all of the balls, and I can't let any of them drop. And if I see something, I'm going to take initiative at the first moment that I see it. And like I said, there are so many things that we could talk to him. Let's say if you were in couples counseling where the therapist could, for example, give him ideas of ways to take initiative or whatever. But right now, with it being just you, I'm more concerned with like, how do we get you to allow some balls to drop and potentially get you out of the over functioning role so that we can stop enabling some of the under functioning. Does that make sense?
Totally.
Yeah. And so I want to hear more about some of these stories that you have in, well, let me dial it back for a second. What would happen if you let some of this go? Like, what would happen if you like took a moment and decided for this one day in history, like, I'm not going to be so aware. I'm not going to have my pulse like so finely in tuned with every single little thing that needs to happen. What does that bring up in you? And what does that bring up in you?
Like right away, like it actually, like you saying that, I feel like I had like a little heart opening, which
Mm,
usually makes me like tear up just a little because it actually feels like in my head, I'm like, I'm cool. I don't nag. I don't like push for things.
mhm,
It's almost like a lot of energy to even like feel that you want to and not. Um,
To hold yourself back.
yes, but I think it's different from what you're saying, which is
Mhm.
like, what if I just released it?
Yeah.
And in that moment, as you were talking, I think there just felt like such a huge sense of ease in that because my brain was like sort of running through a laundry list of like all the things. It's a long laundry list of like all the things that I'm like, I think that there should be a conversation about at some point. And the idea of just letting that go, weirdly, it doesn't freak me out like, oh, I'm letting go of control. Like there was like this moment of that feels freeing. Like that feels
Mhm,
like such a happy place to be.
mhm.
I think that's the biggest thing that's coming up.
And I see the smile. What does the freedom feel like in your body?
Like there's room for play.
Mm,
Like instead of having to figure everything out,
mhm,
maybe we can just like enjoy being together.
mm. Yeah.
Because I think sometimes when it doesn't feel, when it feels like there's things that need to be looked at, that feels like a huge like burden and weight.
Yeah.
It also like clouds any of the openings for like fun connection,
Mhm.
which I do feel like is missing.
Mhm. Yeah, and I get the sense that, the hyper awareness and the constant need to take initiative and the this is what it means to be a strong woman and that over functioning role, it's like this energy of like I got to fix it now. It's like a if I don't fix it, it's not going to get fixed, right?
Mm,
So it's like I see a problem, it needs to be fixed, and it's like there's an undercurrent of control in that.
yeah.
And what I'm hearing is when you, and I love that, I absolutely adore the distinction that you made of it's not a continuing to do that but then reining yourself in and holding yourself back from expressing it. It's a truly a dropping that mindset altogether. There's a very big distinction. And when you made that distinction, it's like, oh, there's room for freedom here. There's room, I feel like play and some emotion came up. And it's almost like I get this curiosity with that of like, I wonder if the quote unquote problem could get solved more from that space.
Mm. That's a really good point. That's a really good point.
Like we have in our mind that the problem will get fixed only in one way, and that's by
Mm,
managing it all and controlling it all, and I've got to be the one to bring it up, and I've got to be the one to micromanage and all the things. I got to overfunction, right? But it's like when we peek in and create a little room, it's like what other way might it be possible for there to come about a solution?
mm. So there's a part of me that's like imagining this, and I see the beginning part, and the beginning part is like that letting go, that opening up. That feels great. Like when I imagine that, I'm like, that feels really good. I want to try that.
Mhm.
Um, I think the thing that comes up after that is almost this like fear that like almost by letting go, then whatever happens after that, I'm essentially saying I can't control it.
Mhm.
And from there, maybe I'm seeing things about this person that maybe really don't work for me. Or
Mhm.
maybe I'm seeing things where I mean, there could be the other side of that too, where I'm seeing, oh, my behaviors weren't working for me.
Mhm.
And I don't know what that looks like, but it's what I can say is the feeling right now of wanting to know what the end result is going to be of all the things that I'm trying to control. That definitely doesn't feel like it's getting me anywhere. It feels like a lot of like, if I had to like name it physically, it feels like so many closed doors that I'm like just
Mhm.
trying to keep like closed so like they don't open, like wind starts coming in and stuff starts getting
Yeah.
all screwed up.
What I'm hearing is that by you letting go, it's going to actually allow to surface the truth of things. And that's scary
Yes.
because it's going to allow you to see the truth about you and the truth about him and the truth about whether or not this partnership can work as it is. And what I'm hearing is that you looking at all of these closed doors and frantically trying them, it gives you the sense of, well, I can do something. it gives you this sense of control. And by dropping that, then we actually have to face the truth of what is. And that's why we stay in these loops, because the truth of what is so uncomfortable.
Mm,
Yeah.
yeah.
And so what I want to say to that, Celeste, is that you're always in choice.
Mm,
If dealing with the truth of what is like that, if this letting go, if this dropping the balls feels like too much right now, you don't have to.
mhm.
I'm not here to push you through the door. I'm here to show you that there is another door and there's another option. And if it feels like, you know what, I just got to keep trying these closed doors for now, that's fine. There's absolutely zero shame in that. But it's having the awareness around what you're doing.
Mm,
It's having it no longer be a unconscious pattern.
yeah. I think I like with these kind of things, I always like the idea of practice where
Mhm.
I can practice and notice what that feels like and start to edge into that.
Yeah, and I would say I love that. Like, what's an area you can do it in a really low stakes way? So funny because I was just talking about this today in another area. But maybe even outside of your partnership, because I don't think this is necessarily always true, but there's that old saying of like how you do one thing is how you do everything. And it's a generalization for a reason. It's generally true.
Mm,
So this over functioning role, maybe really looking at like, where am I doing this in another area? It might be at work, your career, it could be in friendships, it could be in other places. And perhaps if it feels a little lower stakes than trying to drop the ball and actually step out of that need to have hyper awareness and control over all of these situations, if it feels better to try stepping out of that role in a little manageable way in some of these other areas, like maybe you can try that first. How would that feel?
I love that. I'm thinking about where that's showing up for me. And weirdly, I think it also like it kind of ties into boundaries a little bit of areas where like I see like with friendships where I'm sometimes I have unspoken expectations of my friends, but I let it go. I will let things go a little bit more easily because the stakes aren't as high.
Mhm.
Um, but I think even just the expectation part of it, where it's like not not like not setting boundaries where I need to, but looking at where the expectation might be for someone to do something like almost to look for somebody outside of me to show up in a certain way.
Mhm.
I think that's definitely a place that I can start looking
Yeah.
because that also kind of clouds the fun of that being in the moment with
Yeah.
that expectation.
Yeah. I think that's a beautiful place to practice. And I would also just give you the cue of I don't want you to overwhelm your nervous system. And this is a well ingrained role. Like it goes all the way back to seeing your mom do this, right? And many generations of women beyond her, I'm sure. So be patient and gentle with yourself know that it's not going to be overnight, and really ask yourself what feels like a stretch but still doable.
Mm,
And just play with your edges. I don't want it to feel overwhelming. I want it to feel like, yeah, this feels like a stretch, but it still feels like I can do it.
I think I actually want to try that with my partner because I feel safe in my relationship with him to do that. But I do feel like that joy and like play is really just clouded by my laundry list.
Mhm.
Um, and I think there's a lot of ways that I can practice with being more open to that.
Mhm. Mhm. And like I said, with that, first of all, I know you well enough to know that the joy and the play and the creativity is a really integral part of who you are. So I think that will be really interesting to see what that infuses into your relationship.
Mhm.
Um, but also, like I said, I think it'll be really interesting to see what quote unquote gets solved in a different way when you can infuse that in there. I just would encourage you, if it feels good, to take a stance of curiosity with that.
I will. I love that. I love this perspective because it isn't one that I had considered. I think I've really just been shining this bright light on my like relationship to-do list, which feels like a lot of pressure for me and pressure unbeknownst to him and like a huge weight on the relationship.
Yeah. Mm.
Yuck.
Well, I'm mindful of our time, but I feel like we've covered a lot of ground, and I would love to hear what your key takeaways are.
I think I want to be, I think it's two things. I want to be more mindful of the feeling that comes up for me when I'm feeling like it's almost like this tightness in my chest of like an expectation of like him solving something, him rescuing the relationship or like stepping up in a certain way. Because it's not that he doesn't, it just doesn't always look the way I would
Mm.
want it to. But I want to be aware of that feeling because I can feel that control even as I was talking to you of like this.
Mhm.
So I want to start to notice that. Because I think even just like noticing it gets me out of autopilot. And then the second thing is looking for more opportunities for like interactions where it's less expectation or less like to do of the relationship and more of like how can we connect on like together, like what will feel like a fun connection. And I think we can really come together on that.
Yeah. Ooh, I love that so much. It feels
Me
very,
too.
very rich with possibility.
Me too.
Mm.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Celeste.